So in this video, we're going to talk about factoring with three-term polynomials. Remember, when you factor, you're trying to come up with two expressions and multiply together to give you your original expression. The first thing you always want to do is look for a GCF. After that, it depends on how many terms it has. So today we're looking at three terms. I like to call this rainbow method. With a little divide and slide. There are lots of ways you can do three terms, and feel free to look up other YouTube videos. For example, you can actually break it up into four terms and do grouping method, but we're going to do a different way that I personally like called rainbow method. That's not its official name, that's just what I call it. Basically, what you want to do is you're going to basically set up this little puzzle. This is the process. If you want to write it down, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but I'll talk you through it in a second. So here's an example. What I mean by rainbow is what you're going to do is take the leading coefficient in front of your expression and multiply it by whatever's in the back. Technically there's a 1 here, so I'm going to multiply 1 times 10. And that's kind of like a rainbow. And so 1 times 10 is 10, and that is your rainbow number. So I'm going to set up a little puzzle here. What two numbers multiply together to give me 10? That was the rainbow number. And they also have to add together to give me the middle number, 7. That was the middle. So it's like a little puzzle. What two numbers multiply together to give you 10 and add together to give you 7? If you're not sure, start just listing things that multiply to give you 10. That would be like 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and that's it. Or -1 and -10, -2 and -5. The ones that add to 7 would be this, 2 and 5. Because 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 plus 5 is 7. And we're almost done. I'm going to draw out two factors and put x in front of both because I know x times x will give me x squared. And then all you have to do is fill in these two numbers into your factors, +2 and +5, and that's it. Let's check and make sure it works. So does this actually multiply together to get me this? X times x is x squared. Then I've got 5x and 2x. Note that that's going to give me 7x, which is why I wanted the two numbers to add to give me the middle number because of this. And I'll do 2 times 5, which is 10. That's also why I wanted the two numbers to multiply together to give me 10. So it does work. It does get me back to the original. All right. Let's try one more. Again, I'm going to rainbow whatever number's in front, in this case just a 1, times whatever's in the back, in this case a -15. So 1 times -15 is just -15. That's my rainbow number. So I'm going to set up my little puzzle. What two numbers multiply together to give me -15, but add together to give me the middle number, -2? They have to be the same two numbers. Again, start thinking of things that multiply to give you 15, like 1 and 15, 3 and 5. If you play around with negatives, can you get them to add to be -2? So 3 and 5 will work, and we'll need to make the 5 negative, because that multiplies to -15 and adds to -2. Again, just draw out my factors. I'll need an x and an x to get me x squared, and then I'll fill in these two numbers, +3 and -5. Be careful, don't use these two numbers. You want to use the two that you came up with. Again, you can check your work, multiply it out, make sure it does get you back to the original. All right, on this one, notice I actually have a leading coefficient that's not a 1. So this one's going to be slightly different, but you start the same. Multiply whatever's in the front times whatever's in the back. 2 times 2 is 4. So I want to find two numbers that multiply to give me 4, the rainbow number, and add to give me 5, the middle number. This one's a little trickier because it's like, well, 2 times 2 doesn't work, that doesn't add to 5. But actually 1 and 4 will work because 1 times 4 is 4 and 1 plus 4 is 5. The order you put them in doesn't matter. I could have done 4 and 1 or 1 and 4, it doesn't matter. So I'll fill in my factors, x plus 1 because of this, and x plus 4. However, you may notice when I multiply x times x, I get just x squared, not 2x squared. So I'm going to have to do one more step, and this step only applies if the leading coefficient is not a 1. Like on these earlier examples, I just had a 1 here, and so I didn't really have to bother with this next step, but if you don't have a 1 there, sorry, you scared me, your test is right. If you don't have a 1 here, you're going to have to do one extra step, which I call divide and slide. So you're going to need to take that 2, basically, and bring it down here. What you're going to do is try to divide these numbers by the 2. If it divides in evenly, great. So in this one, it does divide in evenly. If it doesn't divide in evenly, or if the fraction doesn't simplify, what you're going to need to do is slide it over right in front of the x. So not all the way over in front of the parentheses, just right in front of that x. So you divide and slide. So this one's going to become 2x plus the 1. All right. The reason that was helpful is now that I have a 2 in front, when I do 2x times x, I get 2x squared. Let's go and check and make sure the rest works. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. 1 times x is 1x. And 1 times 2 is 2. And if you combine these two, you would get back to the original. So these are my final 2 factors. And again, right here, you have to divide or slide with the leading coefficient. Let's look at another one of those. So in this one, it's 3 terms, so rainbow method. I'll multiply 5 times 6, which is 30. And so let's try to find 2 numbers that multiply to give me 30 and add to give me negative 17. If you don't want to write all this out, if you can just figure it out in your head, that's fine. 30 has a lot of factors. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. If it's going to multiply to be positive but add to be negative, they're going to have to both be negative. And I think that will work with this one. Negative 2 and negative 15. So I'll fill those into my factors, negative 2 and negative 15. But remember, I'm not done. I have to divide or slide with this 5 here. So either divide it or slide it. That one doesn't divide in evenly, so I'll slide it over to get 5x minus 2. This one does divide in evenly, so that will be 15 over 5 is 3. All right, this one's 3 terms, so it's tempting to go ahead and start doing rainbow method. However, be careful. Anytime you're factoring, you gotta look for a GCF first. And this one does have a GCF of 2. So I'm going to factor a 2 out from each of these terms, leaving x squared minus 3x minus 18. Now that I've got the GCF out of the way, I'm going to pretty much ignore it until the end. I like to write it down here so I don't forget it. But now I'm just going to deal with this, the x squared minus 3x minus 18. Just pretend that The 2 is not even there. So when I do rainbow method, I'm not including the 2. I'm just going to be looking at this 1 here times the negative 18. And so I want two numbers that multiply to be negative 18 and add to be negative 3. Negative 6 and 3 will work. So that gives me x minus 6 and x plus 3. And then the question is, do I need to divide or slide? The answer is no, because I just had a 1 in front of the x squared. The 2, the GCF, was already gotten rid of. It goes in the very front, but it doesn't need to, we don't need to divide or slide with it. We just leave it in the very front. And since there was just a 1 here, we're good. If there was any other number here, we would need to divide or slide with this number. Also, just by the way, with the 1, you technically are doing divide or slide. It's just that if I divide both of these by 1, it just divides it evenly and it doesn't change it. Or if I slide a 1 over, it doesn't change it. So you are doing divide or slide with the 1, it just doesn't change anything. Okay, so that's my final answer on that one. All right, here's the last one. There's no GCF here. It's 3 terms, so I'll do rainbow method. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So what are two numbers that multiply to give me negative 12 and add to give me negative 4? My options will be like 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. 2 and 6 will work. If I make the 6 negative. Okay, so fill those into your factors. X plus 2 is positive 2, and x minus 6. Don't forget, we need to divide or slide here with the 4. So I'll either divide it or slide it. You may notice neither of these divides in evenly. However, these fractions do simplify, and that technically counts as dividing. So if you can simplify the fractions, you want to do that. So this becomes x plus 1 over 2. 2/4 is 1/2. This becomes negative 3 over 2. And then whatever's left over, you can go ahead and slide. So in this case, we'll have 2x plus 1, and then 2x minus 3. On a complicated one like that, definitely check and make sure that it works. So 2x times 2x does give me 4x squared. Then I'd have negative 6x and positive 2x, which is negative 4x. And then 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So it did work. I think that was the last one. Yeah.